Hi everyone, it's Kate from the Fold Line. I am back this week to talk all things sewing bee. So it was episode 6, I think, or 5 or 6, I can't remember now. Everything's merging into one. What did everyone think? I am going to say, if you haven't watched the show, don't watch this because there are spoilers in here. We tell you what happens. So go and watch it and then come back and see what patterns we picked. So the theme last night was recycling. Quite a tricky week, again, in terms of what they had to make. First challenge was a bomber jacket, a men's bomber jacket, and they had to make this out of items of clothing that they were given. Yeah, it was tricky, and they were using lots of different types of fabric and piecing them together. Yeah, I think they did a really good job. It was quite a tough first challenge. We've got a few bomber jacket patterns for you. Then the second challenge was upcycling, and they had to use those laundry bags, you know, the ones that you sort of plastic with this sort of tartan laundry bags to make it into a garment, which I thought was really interesting and quite tricky next go. And then the showstopper was basically using old jumpers to make a dress. I'm not gonna lie, it was quite a tricky one for us because the last challenge, quite a lot of them admitted to just self-drafting. So what we thought we'd do is I've picked some patterns. There's one or two which I think were quite close, and one I know that was right. And then I've got a few jersey patterns that I thought you might find interesting just at the end. Right, I'm gonna get started. So. The first thing I've got to talk to you about is the McCall's 7637. Brain. 7637. I picked this one. I think this is probably the closest to the one that we saw in the show. It's a unisex pattern, which is great, so men and women's. It comes in with 3 variations. So the first variation is your classic bomber, which was the closest one. Zip up the front, pockets. I think the pockets are in the side seams for this one, which in the show they are actually patch pockets. Then it comes with a hood variation and a kind of full collar variation as well, which is quite nice because you can actually make quite a lot of different things with just this one pattern. Yeah, I thought that was a good first option. The next option I put in is the Butterick 6618. I popped this one in because it's got a raglan sleeve, and to me that is a more classic bomber shape. It's also a lot easier to put in as a sleeve. So if you're if you're more of a beginner, this would be a better option, I would say, in terms of construction. Poppers down the front. It doesn't have ribbing around the waist. It just has a line of elastic, which is quite easy to insert. So I thought that if you're kind of in the beginner category, this might be a good option. And last but not least, I thought I'd have an indie pattern because why not? So I've got the Inara bomber jacket from DG Patterns. I really like this pattern actually. It's quite interesting, the cut. You can see from the line drawings here, it's got a kind of 2-part sleeve. It's quite close fitting. This is definitely designed to be made in a woven fabric. So yeah, I think you could have quite a lot of fun with picking different fabrications for this. And then it's got ribbing round the cuff, the collar and the hem. Whew, couldn't think of what to say, and then I just elbowed the flowers. Sorry. How good are my flowers today, guys? Look at that peony, isn't it beautiful? Anyway, flowers aside. Yeah, so that was the first challenge. The next challenge, which I spoke about, was the upcycling one. Then the final showstopper. So this one I thought was really hard. They were all allowed to bring in their own jumpers to make this their garment. So they'd all gone and raided loads of charity shops and got kind of amazing things. It was just hard. Like as a pattern for us, like hunting out the patterns for this was really difficult because a few of them were like, yes, I definitely used, I've self-drafted, or I just made it up as I went along. There are a couple which I just couldn't get, and I'm going to put it out to you guys, so if you've got any suggestions, I'd love to know. Right, so I'm going to start with the one that I know is right. So Nicole, who won Garment of the Week, I thought this was amazing, really clever construction. Luckily she flashed what she was making, and I then went and found it. So she used the share knit dress from Style Arc, and actually I've got quite a few Style Arc patterns for this. This pattern, she's used it as a base, or the sort of silhouette, and she's then cut loads of different seam lines into it, because it was pieced with lots of different it had lots of different pattern pieces, but she's definitely used the share knit dress as the kind of base. It's a cocoon shape, it's got a roll neck, and it's a really lovely pattern actually. It's quite interesting cut wise, so if you are looking for something kind of cozy, this would be a really nice option. Especially in the UK we're going into winter, but I know in other parts of the world it is not. Australia, you're going into your winter now, so if you're looking for some jersey and something to be cozy, and this is a good option. So next up, Matt's multi-panelled skirt? Multi-panelled skirt winter dress. Wow, that's quite a handful. This was quite a full-on garment. So it was quite simple at the top, basically a jumper, and then it had all these panels of different types of wool, or different jumpers sewn into it, and it was quite dramatic. It was, I mean, really brave. I'd have definitely just opted for something a bit less scary. But if you saw that and thought I really want to kind of recreate something along those lines, I've got two options which are kind of similar, sort of a good starting point at least. So I've got the McCall's 8062. This is a simple kind of shift type dress with a kind of handkerchief hem, which is similar to his. His hems was kind of all over the place, and it's pieced in with loads of different jumpers, but I think you could use this and kind of use this as the base and sort of create around that. The other option I had for it was the Elisa dress from Style Arc. This again, quite simple in terms of the shape, but it's got this quite interesting sort of dramatic pleat at the front, and I thought that would give a bit of a nod to Matt's dress, and you could put in different bits of different types of wool if you, or different types of fabrics, and mix and match to kind of get a feel of that. So I thought that was those two together would be quite kind of good. Who is next? Liz's panelled chevron winter dress. This one I thought I'd be able to find a perfect one of this, but I definitely struggled again. But I've got two which I think have got kind of quite a nice feel. The first one is the Vogue 1634. Liz's dress is definitely more fitted than this, but when you look at the seam lines on this, it's got that feel, it's got things moving, it's quite asymmetric. I think you could use this as a starting point, and it's definitely got that kind of feel. If you wanted something that was more graphic and sharper like Liz's, I thought that the Dorata Davies Maxine dress would be a nice option. It's quite interesting cut wise. It's got this cross at the front, it's got really interesting pockets in the seams. It's a really nice pattern actually, and there's also a variation to have a high neckline as well if you like that, so I thought that could be a nice sort of nod to Liz's. Mark's, I thought, okay, Mark had an asymmetric winter dress. He had this big sort of chevron going down the middle, high neck, drop sleeves, and he was using different jumpers, one of which was a childhood jumper. So the pattern that I thought you could use as a base was the Venice dress, the Venice knit dress from Style Arc, again another Style Arc. They seem to do quite a lot of patterns with interesting cut lines, so they were a great resource this week for us. You can see here they've got these two sweeping seams that go right across the middle of the dress. It's slightly cocoon shape, it's a little bit more drapey, you can see them marks, but I thought that would be a kind of good starting point. Right, who is next? Oh yeah, Therese. So Therese, this was quite nuts. so it was like 2 jumpers sewn together, and it had these bits in the sides, and she kept changing her mind, and I could see the stress as she was going on because she couldn't work out what to do, whether to go more wild or to play it safe. Anyway, the pattern that I found, which I thought is definitely not perfect, but it's a good starting point, is a Simplicity 9014. This is a very loose, cozy dress. But, oh, I mean, really, this is like ultimate lockdown loungewear, this pattern. It's got a nice big collar, loose fitting, drop sleeves, really easy to make. You can whip it up very quickly. But I thought this, if you liked that, would be a really good starting point. So the last 2 patterns, Peter's, which was absolutely nuts, had this big collar and puff sleeves and wraps, and I mean, I just couldn't find anything similar. But the one that really got to me was Claire, because it really annoyed me because I thought I could find it and I couldn't. She mentioned it was a vintage dress. I trawled through so many vintage patterns, but I've failed. So hers is a 1920s puffin inspired winter dress, and it was beautiful. All these kind of cut-in panels, and she had them in beautiful colours that were inspired by a puffin, so reds through to yellows and white, and it was beautiful. I thought it was so clever, and that was definitely my favourite of the weeks. Yes, so any suggestions, guys, because I've failed. We just failed on those ones, so any suggestions, very welcome. If you are thinking you want to make something out of jersey, and you want to make something quite cozy and a kind of simple, nice sort of vibe, I've got 3 patterns which I just thought I'd share because I was looking at them and I thought, oh, they're really nice, and I think people would like to make them. So the first one we've got is the Alex dress and sweater from Lenoline Patterns. This is drop shouldered, it's slightly cocoon shaped, it's really relaxed fit, it comes in a jumper and a dress. Again, lockdown loungewear, lovely. You can make this really quickly, it's a real kind of win, and also it's one of those patterns that once you've nailed it, you can make it in loads of, make it in loads of different fabrics and you'll love it and wear it all the time. So I thought that would be a nice one. The other one, if you're feeling in that vibe, is the South Bank sweater and dress from Nina Lee. This comes with a dress and a top. It's got a funnel neck, this slightly drop shoulder, not as dramatic as the Alex, because I know some people don't like a drop shoulder that much. It's closer fitting, the sleeves are closer fitting on this, and the dress has quite a big band around the bottom, which I think is quite flattering on lots of different body shapes, so I thought that one is a really nice option. And then the last one, if you're feeling like you want to make something a little bit more challenging in jersey, I put in the Elskin dress and top from Charlotte Can. I put this one in because I thought when I show you the line drawings, you'll see it's really interesting cut lines on this pattern. It's a batwing shape, but it's got these amazing seams, and I thought if you wanted to challenge yourself, I thought this would be a really nice option. It's a really, it's not often that you see jersey with interesting cut lines, and actually that's what I really enjoyed about searching for this week, because I think Style Arc really shone to me that like they do quite interesting stuff with their jersey pattern cutting. So yes, that is it from us this week. I hope that was useful and enjoyable. Do go and check out the blog post because there's lots more stuff and more pattern suggestions on there, as well as hints and tips from the show. And we'll be back next week with another one. Have a lovely weekend.